Oh, what do you know about the murder hornet?
Yeah, the world's ending.
Do you think the murder hornet has the potential to wipe out bees?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this happens to be the actual spot where the entire colony was wiped out.
So if suddenly we have Asian giant hornets, it's going to hurt us, but it's going to hurt everyone in the entire country.
We're walking along the border. Sorry, one second. We're walking along the highly secure border between the United States of America and Canada, hunting for the potentially dangerous murder hornet.
You sure you don't want me to move?
Vaping illness blamed for Antifa is carrying out CDC recommends against e-cigarettes. What parents should know.
As clickbait headlines warp our view of the world, we're going down the rabbit hole to ask, how afraid should we really be? On this episode, the media's entomophobia of the murder hornet.
A new type of insect has arrived in the U.S.
Dubbed the murder hornet for its powerful sting and the way it decapitates its prey.
What makes the hornets even more terrifying is the threat they pose to humans. Their stings can deliver nearly 7 times the amount of venom as a honeybee.
As if 2020 hadn't made us anxious enough, now we have giant hornets in the Pacific Northwest. I wanted to see if everyone there was panicking, so I flew to Seattle to meet up with local beekeeper Peter Nolte, who loves his bees, loves his honey.
The Pinehurst neighborhood honey has a lot of linden nectar in it. The Broadview neighborhood honey, more blackberry blossom. If you see something labeled as wildflower, that's the beekeeper saying, I don't know what that is. It's wildflower. We do not currently have Asian giant hornets this far south. Currently, they're all up pretty close to the border. Last fall, some Asian giant hornets were found both in Canada and just on the Washington side of the Canadian border. So when we started hearing from, friends, family, customers back in May, what's going on with the murder hornets? First of all, we were like, what's a murder hornet?
The New York Times first wrote about the Asian giant hornet's North American debut at the end of 2019 to little fanfare. It wasn't until this May, at the height of the pandemic, did they release a second article using the provocative nickname The Murder Hornet. Did this story become the clickbait headline that doubled down on 2020? Even though the Washington State Department of Agriculture has had only 18 confirmed sightings over the year, a whole bunch of people think they've spotted them. Looking through the WSDA's Facebook page, you can see post after post of false sightings. I even found someone on Reddit that claims they found one in New York City. Asian giant hornets were first found in Canada, but could have crossed over the border to the US. So I drove up to Blaine, Washington to see if I could spot them flying over.
What the heck is this? Hello, Canadians. So exotic. The murder hornet doesn't care about these dang borders and just goes back and forth as it pleases. Have you seen murder hornets crossing the border? Have you seen the murder hornets crossing the border?
Murder hornets?
Have you seen one? Or
I've seen some very big-ass, bald-faced hornets this year.
Actually, to be honest with you, I thought it was, so I just sent it to its Neverland.
Oh, you killed it?
You're damn right.
There's probably plenty of other stuff we should be afraid of at the moment other than the murder hornet.
Surprisingly, nobody seemed too panicked up here. That changed after I met Ted McFall, a beekeeper whose colony was massacred by the hornets this spring. After suiting up, he took me to the scene of the crime.
So yeah, talk to me about the day that you came out here.
Yeah, so I was expecting it to be just a normal day, just to have a look at my bees, make sure everything's ready for the winter. And as I came rolling up, I noticed a dark spot in front of this colony. And so that's when I knew, there's probably a problem. And so whenever I showed up and I saw all the dead bees everywhere that had been decapitated, I thought, maybe there's still some survivors inside it. So that's when I opened it up, and unfortunately not. Everything was dead.
Trying to save his bees from further annihilation, Ted has set up a series of traps to catch the murder hornet.
So it has to be big enough for them to fit in, but it has to be small enough to make it tough for them to get out. You just pour it through a strainer, and then you see what you got.
Oh my God. Oh, there was one alive in there.
Here's what we have in this particular trap. You see a lot of these yellow jackets, which they're looking for a lot of the same things that the murder hornet is going to be looking for. This one happens to be a native hornet.
Wow, you can see its stinger out there.
Yeah,
That's a big one.
They have big stingers. Nothing compared to the murder hornet, though.
That is a big stinger, and that freaks me out. So I have no idea what would happen if I saw a murder hornet stinger.
Yep. You see some people that say, well, they deal with them in Asia, and everything's okay there, so probably everything's going to be okay here, too. But that's not really a fair comparison, because in Asia, the bees have have evolved with the Asian giant hornet, so they're able to defend themselves. Here, the bees have no idea what this creature is, and they have no way of defending themselves.
Ted is part of a greater community of citizen scientists who have put out more than 1,400 traps across the region. A small team of state entomologists has set out an additional 700. But is that enough? Hoping to get a straight answer on how dire the situation really is, I met up with Dr. Chris Looney as he checked some of his official state traps, which honestly didn't look any more advanced than Ted's DIY ones.
So normally when we survey for exotic pests, we are putting out pheromone lures that are known to be biologically attractive. We have these, it's one of those things where in its native range, people have been dealing with it for, millennia. That's where we got these bottle designs for. People use this in Japan and Korea and stuff just as a commercial or a cottage kind of approach to trapping them. There's never been a real need or the incentive to develop something more biologically sophisticated. So yeah, we're kind of running blind.
Do you feel like a sense of urgency right now to try and trap these things or get some plans in action?
This is a species that is really well adapted to living in the environment at large, right? They're social insects. They are good at setting up nests. They are good at foraging for food. The longer we take to try and eradicate it, the harder and harder it's going to be. So yeah, we gotta act fast. And kind of like coronavirus, we're stymied by not having the most effective tools. We do know that in every single case where a species, an invasive species becomes established, it would have been cheaper to get rid of it than to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. So that's what you're trying to do.
That's what we're trying to do.
Should people across the country be afraid that these murder hornets will show up in their backyard?
I don't think anybody should be afraid. And this insect, we don't really know much about how it disperses, but we think it could reach Oregon in less than 20 years, maybe more like 10 if it flies similar to a species that's invading Europe right now.
So you're trying to sort of squash the panic a little bit.
Yeah, don't be afraid. So initially, we were concerned that the human death rate was like a lot higher than it has turned out to be. In the last couple of decades, it's been maybe a dozen people die from all stinging insects, which is not much different than what we already have here. So it seems like the risk to humans is low, and people should bury their entomophobia and focus on all the other important stuff they got going on right now, which is there's no shortage of that.
This isn't worth putting in the peak 2020 pantheon of shit that's happened.
No, I think we should put it in there.
Okay.
But it's less important than racial justice, dealing with economic inequality, dealing with a huge pathogen. There's all this other stuff going on that is going to impact all of us much more immediately than this.
This series is about critiquing the media and how clickbait headlines invoke fear. As much as I would love to hate on the New York Times for using such an incendiary headline, I must give it credit. Asian giant hornets are an issue, and they are part of a continued history of invasive species that needs to be reined in. To use a headline that gets people to pay attention to an issue that requires an engaged community is a proper use of clickbait. And even if everyone around the country thinks they've seen a murder hornet but really haven't, at least they're looking and paying attention. Have you guys seen the giant Asian hornet over there in Canada? The giant Asian hornet, the murder hornet?
No. Is that what you're looking for?
That's what we're looking for.
Ah, good luck.
Thank you.
I hope you find them.